puzzling decision from Mumbai Indians in their last game of the season, which also reminded of a match from the past. The Jadeja Impact Sub call, and they finally understand what's ailing Jasprit Bumrah. All this and much more in the 23rd Yard Club Cricket Podcast. In their last game of the season against Rajasthan Royals, Mumbai Indians had a kind of start that might have reminded some Indian fans of India's start in the 1996 Cricket World Cup semi-final against Sri Lanka. They opted to field first in sapping conditions at Wankhede, much like what India had done in that game on that dry, cracking Eden Gardens pitch in 1996. And they proceeded to execute a beautifully thought out plan to neutralize arguably the most ferocious opening pair of the IPL season. Not too dissimilar to how India had managed to keep Jayasuriya and Kalu Vitarana quiet before getting them out very cheaply in the innings. India in that game and Mumbai Indians in this one kept chipping away at wickets throughout the innings, but the runs kept arriving from somewhere or the other, and in the end, Sri Lanka in that game and Rajasthan in this one ended up with a kind of score where you're not sure whether it's a match-winning total, and the discussion is more on the lines of, absolutely no clue what a good score is. Maybe we are ahead or maybe we are not. It was only when the chase began that one realized that this was not your standard Wankhede pitch, not your standard Wankhede runway, and it had probably slowed down even further in the second innings. There were no near rides forcing the game to be abandoned like had happened in the 96 World Cup, although a few bottles were allegedly launched into the atmosphere at some point, which was a discussion from the commentators. But the chasing side, Mumbai Indians, never really got close enough to making Rajasthan nervous. Sri Lanka had made the final as a result of that game. Rajasthan here made the playoffs. The similarities end there though, because while that semi-final was one of the biggest games India had played at the time, Mumbai Indians here, in this case, were already out of the tournament and were essentially fighting to avoid finishing last, which they did. It was Lucknow Super Giants who ended up finishing last, which is why it made things even more confusing to watch, where they won the toss and decided to field first in a May game in the afternoon with temperatures touching 35, 36, 37 degrees Celsius and humidity levels sitting in a deeply disrespectful, sapping 70 to 80% range. A mentally exhausted side, a dead rubber game, brutal conditions, final match of the season, and you voluntarily choose to spend 2 hours fielding first. Why would you do that to yourself, Hardik? And or whoever else in the think tank decided that suffering builds character at this late stage of the tournament. One look at the Mumbai Indians bowlers during the second half of the first innings, and you could tell they wanted this game and possibly the summer to end immediately. The conditions worsened as the innings progressed. Fielders started diving somewhere vaguely near the ball and then took a small emotional journey before getting back up. Even batters, they found it difficult to get going. They ran themselves out because stopping and turning in that heat required the kind of mental fortitude that cricket really should not demand from human beings. Bowling follow-throughs started becoming shorter and shorter, and the amount of huffing and puffing after every delivery bowled probably released enough carbon dioxide to cancel out all those dot ball saplings planted this season. It was not easy batting in those conditions either, and that Dhruv Jurel wicket was a perfect example of it. It was not as if this was death overs bowling, with the batter swinging blindly at everything. That was when Corbin Bosch had just come on to bowl a second over, bowling in the range of 130 to 135 kilometers per hour. But after 4 successive length balls, he slipped in a Yorker. Under normal circumstances, Jurel would probably have gotten his bat down in time. In that heat though, the body had clearly informed the brain that cooperation was no longer guaranteed. From 122 for 5 after 14 overs and 139 for 6 in the 16th, with Jofra Archer having walked out to bat at number 7, Mumbai Indians really should have restricted Rajasthan Royals to somewhere around 180 on that pitch. But by that time, their bowling attack looked absolutely cooked. The game, in the end, stretched to 4 hours and 15 minutes, one of the longest matches this season. And while I've criticized the timing issue in IPL in 2026 before, this was one game where the slower pace actually made complete sense. Those conditions were brutal. Players genuinely needed those regular mid-over pauses just to remember what sport they were participating in. Which is why, again, winning the toss and fielding first was a very surprising call. Ravindra Jadeja, coming on as an impact sub batter at number 9, raised quite a few eyebrows. Why was Jadeja batting behind Archer and Shubham Dubey? I mean, Shubham Dubey still bats, but Archer, really? Honestly, I do not think they planned on bringing Jadeja in at all initially. Looking at the surface, they probably preferred someone like a Tushar Deshpande to bowl a few overs of hard lengths, cutters, and then wide Yorkers towards the end, with the field stacked up accordingly. Those were such conditions on the pitch. Sending Jadeja out to bat felt more like a decision they were forced into once Dubey became the seventh wicket to fall with 14 balls still to go. And that one call ended up becoming the difference between a total of 185 for Rajasthan and the 205 that they eventually reached. Had Archer and Ferreira, for example, or even Archer and Dubey, those partnerships continued right till the end, I strongly suspect they would have brought in a seamer instead as an impact sub. A quick word as well on the conversation around Jasprit Bumrah, who was rested for the game, with both Harsha Bhogle and Ravi Shastri on the broadcaster's commentary suggesting that his underwhelming IPL season may have been partly down to physical and mental fatigue. There is no doubting in my mind that if you drive a Rolls Royce on Mumbai's monsoon roads long enough, eventually the engine is going to start protesting. I'm honestly more surprised that this conversation did not begin earlier in the tournament, as early as in the second or the third match. Either ways, the good news for India is that Bumrah now gets a few weeks off, having not been selected for the Afghanistan series either. Thank God for that. As he recharges for the far more important ICC World Test Championship figures, which there'll be a Sri Lanka series and a New Zealand series, and there'll be an Australia home series, and the ODIs leading into the 2027 World Cup. So that's that from the league stages of the IPL this season. I'll be back soon reviewing the first qualifier, hopefully, and then the remaining 3 matches as well, including the final. Look forward to your company. Please just subscribe to the channel. And till next time, bye-bye.